Yeah. Said anything that you want me to, I'll do it.
Tell me what the word is already. Tell me what the word is already. Tell me what the word is already. Tell me what the word is already.
Don't look no farther. Baby, I'm that, yeah. I'm here to cater to you. Anything that you want me to, I'll do it. 'Cause I'll be your lover.
Hello and welcome to the 2005 NFL preview show and also fantasy football segment we're going to have coming up. Today, joining me again over to my right is Brandon, and next to him is Bob. You may remember us, all you fans of the 2005 fantasy baseball preview show. We're back here to give you a little football segment, and we're going to start off. We're going to get to all the fantasy positions: quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, and so on. But right now, we're going to start off kind of doing an NFL preview. First of all, I'd like to recognize and congratulate former Miami Dolphins quarterback Dan Marino. As you see here on camera number 2, we've got a nice jersey of him. Of course, he just got inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the greatest quarterback of all time. So it's an honor. But anyway, so we're going to jump right in, starting actually with Dan Marino's old division, the AFC East. We're going to go over each division and kind of predict who we think is going to be the division winners this season, maybe, and also then who's going to make the playoffs here in the NFL this year. And these are our bold predictions, so let's jump right in. All right, let's start the AFC East. We'll start off with Brandon. What's your predicted order of finish for the teams in the AFC East? Of course, the teams are Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, New York Jets, and New England Patriots.
First off, I'd like to give a shout out to Steve Young, who just got inducted to the Hall of Fame as well. He actually has a Super Bowl ring, which is nice. But for the AFC East, I have the division winner being once again New England. I don't see them losing that title. They're by far and away the best team. Buffalo has a rookie quarterback. Miami has no quarterback, and the Jets are average. So I have winning the division is New England. Second place, I have the Jets. Third, I have Buffalo. And rounding out the last spot would be the Dolphins.
You're going after the number 1 pick next year, Matt Leinart.
Right. They could use him.
Okay, so you've got New England winning the division there. Bob, how do you have the AFC East looking this year?
I went with the New York Jets to win the division, New England to come in second, Buffalo third, and those lonely Miami Dolphins fourth.
All right, New England, you picked them second.
Yeah.
They won the division and a couple Super Bowls here in a row. What makes you think that the Jets have improved or New England hasn't?
They've lost a couple key linebackers in New England. I just don't think their defense is going to be solid enough to stop enough teams to lock up the division.
Yeah, you do realize Bill Belichick's a genius, though, right?
We'll see.
both
With coordinators gone, I don't know. I just think New England's going to kind of fall apart, be an average team this year.
What do you think about the Jets switching back their number 1 receivers, getting Lavernius Coles back from Washington?
I kind of like it, actually. That's one of the things I think their offense has improved. They did lose Lamont Jordan for a backup running back. He was a pretty good player, but I just don't see New England being able to hold on to this division this year.
Curtis Martin showed last year that he's not done in any way, shape, or form.
Right,
Chad
exactly.
Pennington, of course, upcoming quarterback, so it might be a breakout surprise year for the Jets. Okay, I don't exactly agree, but the way I've got the division run out, I do think New England will repeat as champions of the AFC East, unfortunately, for the Dolphins and other teams in the division, but they're just so good up and down. I mean, Tom Brady, I guess, I'm not a huge fan of his, but it's really hard to take anything away from this guy. He's got a lot of the qualities I would say Joe Montana showed. Not only being surrounded by a great team, of course, helps, but I think he's got that extra something that just makes him a winner. So they've got that going for them, and even though their losses on defense, I still think they're going to win that division, and Belichick will have them to play. And the division's not that tough, I don't think. Buffalo is not that good, and, of course, Miami. But the Jets, I think, will finish a strong number 2. I think they will be an up-and-coming team here. I'm not sure if they have enough yet to overtake the Patriots with division lead, but I think they will finish a close second, followed by the Miami Dolphins, who are much improved, drafting of Ronnie Brown. Unfortunately, I'd hate to say that the Dolphins still have Ricky Williams and David Boston listed on their roster. That really bothers me.
Their defense got worse.
No, they did some good drafting.
Sure.
Well, they did lose some cornerbacks, Patrick Surtain namely, but yeah, we'll see how things go. But yeah, Miami at best can finish third, I think. And then Buffalo, number 4. Obviously, they're starting the year out with J.P. Lausman, most likely as a second-year quarterback, his first ever starting the year off as their starter. I think they're going to go through some growing pains, and Willis McGahee, they do have. Obviously, he's going to be a solid running back, but I just don't see him finishing too good this year, so I'll pick him 4th. All right, let's move on to the next division of the 4.
I'm
in the
just
AFC.
curious for a second how you think J.P. Lossman can do worse than A.J. Feely.
A.J. Feely will be probably riding the pine while Gus Frerotte leads the.
Gus Frerotte.
Because for
Leaves-
let's
leaves
just
the
slam our
Dolphins
head
to the,
against. Yeah. All right,
Look for a breakout
just
year
a
from
question.
Chris
I
Chambers.
just don't know how.
Okay, so AFC
Anyways.
North, Bob, give us your infinite wisdom on who you think will win the NFC North.
I think the much improved Cincinnati Bengals are going to win, followed by Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland. I think Carson Palmer is just going to have a breakout year. He's got some good wide receivers sitting there for him. Baltimore does have a strong defense, but with that offense and that quarterback, they can't go anywhere. I just don't think they can do it better than second. And Pittsburgh, they're solid, but I don't like them.
Yeah. And Deuce Staley is already injured, but the bus is obviously still, the wheels are still turning on that guy. So, Brandon, how do you have the AFC North?
For me, this is the toughest division in the AFC. Bob and I did have their consensus bottom dwellers is Cleveland. They're horrible defensively and offensively. I don't see them winning much more in 3 or 4 games. At the top of the division, I had to go with Baltimore. I think Kyle Bowler's improving slowly but surely. Jamal Lewis is back, guy's a horse, and their defense is still phenomenal. They made a good pickup at cornerback. To add to their already solid defense. Cincinnati, I have at number 2. They are much improved. Their offense is good. Their defense is solid. The only reason I have them at number 2 is because they are Cincinnati. Then number 3, I have Pittsburgh. Their defense is solid. I think their offense is going to struggle. I think Roethlisberger might have a little bit of the second-year slumps. Losing Plax was bigger than I think people realize. That was one of the receivers that he counted on. And having just the bus and not do Staley for a while is also going to hurt him because the bus is old and he's just not going to be able to be a featured back, and their backups are pathetic. Vernon Hayes, the experiments have all been tried and failed.
All right. And I guess we're going to start off here with our first 3-way disagreement because I have a different team than you two had at the top of the division. I have Pittsburgh, of course, repeating as division winners of the AFC North. I actually think that Plaxico Burress is not a very good player. I really think that Pittsburgh's defense is much improved. I think they're going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL this year. You combine that with Ben Roethlisberger really being able to do that ball control offense. They, to me, have the makings of a possible championship team. I don't think they have enough parts to actually win the Super Bowl this year, but I think they have the right formula down. It's starting with that the steel curtain defense coming back. But I do think they'll win this division. I don't think it's quite as tough as you guys are saying it is. I'm going to pick Cincinnati to finish second as well. I think they're going to be one of the best surprising teams this year in the division. I don't think they'll have enough to finish better in Pittsburgh, though. I think they're going to still go through some growing pains with Carson Palmer and the rest. But I have Baltimore finishing third. Their defense will remain to be solid, but I just don't see them having an offensive click. I don't think Kyle Bowler is a very good quarterback. And then fourth, Cleveland. There's not much to say there. Kellen Winslow, began the year just really hosing the team by his behavior and stuff, and then their front office went out and decided to make Trent Dilfer their number 1 quarterback in the depth chart going in this year. So that spells an absolute disaster. So I see them finishing probably one of the worst teams in the league. Maybe they'll go after Leinart next year instead of the Dolphins, but we'll see. I just can't see them being good at all. Even though Braylon Edwards, I think, will have a good rookie season. We'll see. All right, so that wraps up the AFC North. Again, we all have different. I had Pittsburgh, Brandon had Baltimore, and Bob had Cincinnati winning it. So it should be a division up for grabs, if nothing else. All right, moving on to the AFC South. Let's see, Brandon, you want to start off with who you've got?
Sure. To me, this division's pretty easy to pick, especially the winners, and I think they pretty much fall into place. From there, Indianapolis, what else can you say? Their offense is phenomenal, and their defense is, as time goes on, they're going to mature a little bit, and I think it will get a little bit more solid every year. 2 for me is Houston. They also have a very solid defense, and they have three exciting young players on offense. They have all the keys to be a good, solid offensive team this year. 3 would be Jacksonville. I think that with Leftwich, he gives them enough offense and enough comeback ability to be, around a 500 team. And my 4th team would be Tennessee. Now, they have 2 solid running backs. Their defense is to be desired, and McNair, if he stays healthy, isn't gonna give them the offense that they need. I don't feel anymore. So I have them last.
Okay, Bob, how do you have them ranking?
Same exact. Indianapolis, Houston, Jacksonville, Tennessee.
That's pretty funny.
I think this is just really an easy division for Indianapolis to pretty much take. Houston, like you said, really up-and-coming team, a solid defense. I think they may be able to give Indianapolis fits at the end of the year to possibly have a chance of taking the division, but I just don't see Indianapolis, scoring less than 25, 30 points a game. So
Yeah.
it's just pretty difficult to pick anybody but them to win this division.
All right, and we have a consensus here. That's the order I have them too. I have the Colts, followed by the Houston, Jacksonville, and Tennessee. I actually think the Houston will be the surprise team in the division, but I actually think Jacksonville is an up-and-coming team too. I expect kind of breakthrough years by both Byron Leftwich and David Carr.
And the Mathlete.
But I think the Dominic Davis will have a great year, and combined with they have a great young receiver, as you can tell by Bob's jersey over there. Andre Johnson on the Texans. I think these guys are an up-and-coming team. They remind me, as far as those big 3 guys, a little bit of the early '90s Cowboys as a starter, and I think that as their coach Don Capers will build that good defense like they used to have. So look for them to be an upcoming team. But I think that the offensive juggernaut of the Colts is going to be too difficult to stop. They've really got it going, and their defense is much improved over the years here. So I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the AFC without a doubt. All right, let's move on to the AFC West. Bob, give us this is a division I think that's just kind of going to be up for grabs again. What do you think, Bob?
I don't think it's up for grabs. I think Kansas City runs away with this division hands down. Improve their defense dramatically. Trent Green is a solid quarterback. Priest Holmes, if he can stay healthy the whole year this time, I just don't see them being able to stop. Nobody's going to be able to take them over. And then Denver, I have second because Randy Moss is on Oakland, and I just can't take them second. They're third, and San Diego was a fluke last year. They have the best running back in the game, but if they're going to start Drew Brees, they might as well just pack it up at the beginning of the year and just take the first pick in the draft.
All right. Brad?
I agree with Craig that this division is totally up in the air. I think any 4 of these teams could win the division. I think it's going to be a mediocre division. None of these teams are going to be powerhouses in the AFC. But I agreed with Bob. I did have Kansas City. Their defense is much improved. I love Derek Johnson. I think he'll probably lead the AFC in tackles. And Sam Madison's huge to get a solid cover cornerback like that. But their
Actually, I
offense,
think it was Surtain that they got.
or Surtain,
Patrick
yeah.
Surtain, yeah.
But their offense is getting older, and their mediocre receivers just aren't going to cut it anymore. And Priest can't carry the team on his back for too much longer. So that's why I have them as a close first. Second, I have San Diego. I think when you have the best running back in the league, it's hard to finish last, and their defense is very solid. Third is Denver. Despite Plummer, I think they'll still be halfway decent. Their defense is good. They have a plethora of running backs they could throw in there. And, Shanahan loves to run. And fourth is Oakland. Randy Moss is nice. Their defense still sucks. And Kerry Collins sucks as well. So
Yeah.
I have them finishing last.
Agreed on a lot of those points. Well, how I have them finishing, also I've got, of course, I'm going to go with Kansas City as well, so we have a consensus there. It's really difficult. It was difficult for me to even pick them no more because of, they were such a disappointing team last year. Before coming in last year, they just did not address their defense at all.
No.
This year, they finally did via the draft and trading and free agency and what have you. But so I think their defense will be improved. I still don't think it'll be very good, championship quality, no way. But I think that might be enough to sneak out of this kind of weakening division. I think Denver will finish second. Shanahan always has those guys, about the same type of team, about a wild card-like team, And so, Jake Plummer, he's made strides last year, but I think the key will be whether or not Tatum Bell and their running game gets going back like they did back in the day when Terrell Davis was running all over the place. So I think they will do that and finish second. I have San Diego finishing third. I like the Chargers. LaDainian obviously is a great running back. Drew Brees is a pretty adequate quarterback. He's not going to set the world on fire, and the receivers aren't great. But I do think their defense is much improving. So I think they'll finish no less than third. But it's up in the air because a lot of people think Oakland is an improving team. They obviously got Moss. A lot of people think that automatically makes them a lot better, which it does. But Kerry Collins, like you said, is a moron. And also, I think they're putting a lot of into Lamont Jordan being a great running back, and I just don't see it. Their offensive line should be pretty good, but their defense will still be one of the worst in the league.
Yes.
So, and then I just don't see them finishing too well. You know, they could flip-flop and not finish last, but I've got them finishing last. So, all right, well, that just about wraps up the AFC, and so we'll take a little break, and we'll come back, and we'll go over the 4 NFC divisions, and then we'll go over who we've got making the playoffs as the wild cards and our Super Bowl predictions here as we go through our NFL 2005 preview show, and stay tuned. And once again, we've got a fantasy segment coming up a little later on, too. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Oh man, I got a sweet tooth.
That's when you're gonna need a root canal.
I love sugar.
This one for all the nice, clean, decent women.
Lay it on me,
Pay
girl.
close attention.
Hello, and welcome back to the football preview show here for 2005. And we just went over our AFC predictions. Now we're going to go out through our NFC predictions, starting with the NFC East. Let's see, Bob, start off with who do you think is going to be able to take the NFC East?
Well, I have for the NFC East, I have the Washington Redskins winning it, Philadelphia Eagles second, Dallas third, and the New York Giants fourth. The only reason I'm taking a team over Philadelphia is the Madden jinx.
Really?
Since Donovan McNabb is on the cover of Madden, they're done.
He is?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't even know
Culpepper
that.
was on it last year. They made it pretty.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not going to
I
happen
didn't
to
know
you.
that. I'm
Okay.
going to have to redo these rankings.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
guys. Go ahead, Brant.
And I'm going to take Philly, even though I don't really like any of the teams in this division. I'll take Philly to be my number 1. Dallas, my number 2. Their defense is tough. I love Julius Jones. Number 3 is going to be Washington. They're kind of the wild card in this division. They could be really good or poor. And number 4 is going to be the Giants. Eli Manning still's got a little bit of maturing to do.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to also go with Philadelphia Eagles to win this division. Their defense is going to be returning also great. McNabb has made strides. Obviously, if T.O. holds out, that changes everything, but I don't think he will.
Doesn't
And I
matter.
think Brian Westbrook will have another pretty solid
He's
year.
holding out as well, I'd like
Oh.
to mention.
As long as they don't hold out, they'll be fine. Number 1, they'll win that division again. I don't think they'll return to the Super Bowl this year, but I think they will win that division. 2, I also agree with you, Brandon. Dallas Cowboys. I think they're improving defense. I don't like the move of sticking in Bledsoe at quarterback, but they do have and their receivers really annoy me. But besides that, they should be a solid number 2. Number 3, I've got the Giants. I think Eli Manning will be improving. Tiki Barber's underrated, obviously. So, and they've got some underrated receivers even, but we'll see what happens. I've got the Redskins finishing last, though. I think Patrick Ramsey should not be an NFL quarterback. Clinton Portis is good, but their offensive line is not. So I guess we'll see what happens. But and I also think their owner is not a very intelligent guy, wasting his money on free agents, and their defense has not improved much. So I pick them last. So those are my predictions. But anyway, tough time wrapping that one up. All right, moving on to the NFC North. Brandon, go first on that one.
To me, this division, number 1 is pretty cut and dry.
Packers?
No.
Bay
Minnesota
Packers,
is going to be
Brandon.
Minnesota's number 1.
This is
Their
Wisconsin.
offense is going to suffer a little bit without Randy Moss and that deep threat ability, but I do like Troy Williamson. He's filling quite well, and Burleson's underrated. They have 4 solid running backs, and they have Culpepper, who's probably the best quarterback in the NFC. And their defense, they've got a lot of good rookies, made a lot of good signings. They had a lot of good rookies for last year. They'll be probably one of the best defenses in the NFC, in my opinion. So they're number one. Number two is going to be the Bears, as long as Grossman stays healthy. Their defense is solid. Their wide receivers are solid. They have 2 solid running backs. You guys wait and see.
The Bears.
Three is
see.
going to be Detroit because of the 3 wide receivers they have. And, of course, the best young running back in the league, Kevin Jones.
You mean 2 wide receivers, right?
3.
Rodgers will be out before week 3.
Well,
so it doesn't
whatever.
matter.
And number 4 is the Packers. There are holes all over their defense. Their offense is going to be
Packers
fine,
are
but their
gonna fit-
defense is very bad.
Packers
Probably
are
one of the
last
worst
in
in the
the North,
NFC. So the Packers are last.
You do realize Favre didn't retire yet, right?
Right. Well, so Favre should get them 7 wins, and that's pretty much where they're going to be at for the whole season.
7-9, last place.
right.
All right, we'll see. All right, Bob.
I also took Minnesota number 1. I think they're the strongest team in the division by far. I think Green Bay will probably finish second in the division, with Detroit and Chicago following.
All right, that's fair enough. Chicago in last place, that sounds about right.
Yep.
That's how I picked them too. But anyway, I do also, we have a consensus here. I got the Vikings finishing first. I don't think Moss, I actually think they'll be a better team unit without Moss. Of course, he was a talented guy, but I think Culpepper is talented as well. I think the receiver, now a Burleson fan, but I do like Troy Williamson, who they drafted. Michael Bennett might not be the answer at running back. Maybe he is a far more Badger, but if he does get hurt, I like their depth at running back. I like Walden Moore as a sleeper. But anyway, I think they're just too deep, and they're having a much improved defense, which is what's kind of been their Achilles heel for the last few years. So I do think they'll overtake and win that division. Number 2, I have the Detroit Lions, one of the best, most improving teams in the NFC. Joey Harrington will finally get his stuff together
Their only
with all of his
deficiency.
weapons, and they'll finish second. Their defense is much improved too. Third, I do have the Green Bay Packers, mainly because of Favre, but you're right, they do have a lot of holes on this team. I think Amon Green will have a not so good of a year.
Their offensive line is depleted.
And, yeah. So
Defense
the
is
Bears, though,
horrible.
will still be below the Packers. So all you Packer fans can.
I disagree.
The Bears, they have Rex Grossman, who's not a very good NFL quarterback. They drafted a decent running back.
What's
but
your basis to
I
say
think
that?
Mushin Muhammad is one of the most overrated free agent signings of all time. He's not that good of a receiver. What's he going to help out this team? Well, we don't know. But their defense could be decent. It'll be a tough division. I really think this is going to be one of the better divisions in football. So we'll leave it at that and see how the Packers can do. But anyway, let's move on to the next division. Bob, that's going to be the NFC South. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
I think Atlanta's going to win the division. Michael Vick, I think, is probably one of the most exciting quarterbacks in the league. Their signings and everything this year. Carolina number 2, Tampa Bay number 3, and New Orleans, who will probably start like 5-1 and 6-1 and lose the rest of their games, will finish 4th.
All right.
They do it every year.
I also have Atlanta. Michael Vick, he's a championship waiting to happen. He can single-handedly take a playoff to the team. And then the defense is solid. 2 solid running backs. 2 through 4 is tough for me. I have Tampa Bay at 2. They have the defense. Brian Greasy, I guess. I do like their Cadillac Williams pick, and their wide receivers are solid. Number 3 is Carolina. Their defense is also solid. Daylight coming, I want Adele home. He's good. Their running backs is my main concern. They have injury-prone running backs, to say the least. And I think their wide receivers are also a little bit overrated. Kerry Colbert's good, solid, not that good. And Steve Smith is another injury waiting to happen. And 4, I have New Orleans. There's not much I like about New Orleans. Aaron Brooks is flaky. McAllister's good, and their defense is horrible. So they're 4th.
All right. Kerry Colbert is good. All right, going on to the NFC South. I've got actually Carolina as my surprise division winner right there. I do think Delhomme is underrated. I actually think there's going to be a big year here for Deshaun Foster coming out, their running back. Now that Steven Davis has finally been pushed to the side. They have a good goal line back, Eric Shelton, that they drafted. So I like their improving defense. You know, they have Julius Peppers. This is going to be one of the better defenses in the NFC, I can guarantee that. Number 2, I have Atlanta. They just seem to be missing something. I don't know what it is. Wide receivers. Warrick Dunn had a great year last year, but I don't know if he's the answer, and I don't know if Duckett is either. So they've got some work to do. Their defense is much improved, though, and I like their coach. So anyway, number 3, I do have Tampa Bay Buccaneers finished 3rd. I think they're kind of sliding down. And number 4, perennial basement dwellers, New Orleans Saints. I just don't see that changing for some reason. All right, let's move on to NFC West. Who wants to go first on this one?
I'll go first. Number 1 for me is going to be St. Louis, despite how I want San Francisco to be number 1. I just don't think it's going to happen yet, but soon. Number 1 is St. Louis. I just think that their offense is a lot better with Steven Jackson in there. I think they're going to be a good all-around offense, and their defense is solid enough. Number 2, I have Arizona. I think with Warner at the helm, they have some experience. They have 2 phenomenal wide receivers. I really do like J.J. Arrington, and Marcel Shipp is also another good running back. And their defense is improving quickly. Number 3 is going to be Seattle. Never been a Hasselbeck fan. It's one of those things where they could be 2 or they could be 3. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with number 4 being San Francisco. Alex Smith will eventually be the starting quarterback, but they have deficiencies pretty much everywhere. So that's my NFC West.
All right, Bob.
And I have the surprise team in this one. I take Arizona to take number 1 in it. I know it's Kurt Warner, but this division is just a very poor division in football. You've got Mike Martz as a coach, and it's just sad. I took Seattle number 2, St. Louis number 3, and Frisco just because of inexperience. Otherwise, I would have took St. Louis number 4. They're just horrible. They've got the worst coach in the National Football League. He's considered a genius. He might be the dumbest coach ever to walk the face of the earth. He does not know how to train personnel, do anything with personnel. He's just a complete moron. I like St. Louis, but I hate Martz so much I just can't put him anywhere.
In spite of Martz, though, I mean,
Their team's
Yeah,
still
they
very
play
good.
well in spite of him,
they
but
have
I
some great,
think
talented guys. And
because of
Torrey
Martz,
Holt,
they
Marcus
lose
Paul.
2 to 3
Kevin
extra games a
Curtis.
year. Martz loses 2 to 3 games a year
Yeah.
because of his coaching.
Which should be about enough to still
Yeah,
win this
9 or
division.
10
So
wins.
I picked the Rams to win this division in spite of Mike Martz. Number 2, I agree with Arizona being a surprise team in the NFC. I don't know if Kurt Warner's the answer, but he's much better than the McClowns or whatever they were throwing out there last year. So number 3, I have the Seahawks, who I think are overrated. And what I gave you a little sneak preview of that one last division. But number 4, unfortunately, the 49ers, it'll be a long year for them. But they've got some good young talent, and they need them to give them some playing time. So might as well do that this year. All right, so that wraps up all of our divisions for both the AFC and the NFC. Let's quick go over. You heard all of our division winners. If you guys want to start off by recapping each of your division winners, let's start with the AFC and then pick your 2 wild cards. So recap your division winners and pick your 2 wild cards. Brian, you want to start off?
Starting with the AFC, my division winner in the East was New England. In the North, Baltimore. In the South, Indianapolis. And in the West, Kansas City. And my 2 wild cards, it's maybe a little bit early for both of them. I'm not going to scratch Cincinnati. It's going to be Houston and Pittsburgh, I think.
Okay, fair enough. And then we'll come back to the Super Bowl predictions, but that's your playoff slate for the AFC. What do you got for making the playoffs?
First, the Jets in the East, Cincinnati in the North. I have Indianapolis in the South and Kansas City in the West. I took Houston also for a playoff team and New England as a playoff team
Yeah,
for the wild cards.
I would say New England is pretty solid.
Yeah,
for-
well,
They're like
I took the
Davids.
Jets to win it, so I had to take
Yeah,
them somewhere.
yeah, that was a good pick. All right, I've got my AFC division winners. I got New England, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, and Kansas City as division winners. And we have a consensus here on the wild card, and that's going to be also the Houston Texans. And of course, I like Denver to sneak in there as the last wild card spot. So that's my AFC slate. Let's move right along. Bob starts off with the NFC.
All right.
Playoff
In the East, I've got Washington, North Minnesota, Atlanta, Arizona, and then my wild cards are Philly and Carolina.
Okay. Brandon?
East, I have Philly. North is going to be Minnesota. Then we have the East is going to be Atlanta, and the South is going to be Atlanta, and the West is going to be Seattle or St. Louis. Sorry. And my wild cards are going to be Dallas and I changed my Carolina. I'm going to go with.
All right. Interesting. All right, my NFC playoff teams as division winners. I got the Philadelphia Eagles and Minnesota Vikings. So I think are going to be the 2 best teams in the league. In the league. And Carolina Panthers and St. Louis Rams, who are the weaker two division winners. But then my playoff teams actually both come from the NFC North division, and that's going to be the much improved Detroit Lions. And then, of course, for all you hometown fans, I've got the Packers sneaking in the playoffs. Once they get here, there, we'll see what Favre can do with them. But
Probably throws 5 or 6 interceptions in a playoff game. And lose
heck, it
miserably.
That'll happen.
But anyway, so those are my wild card winners. So let's move out right along to our Super Bowl matchups and who we think will win the Super Bowl.
My Super Bowl matchup would be Indianapolis versus Minnesota. And I think it's about time for Indianapolis to win one. I have Indianapolis winning the whole thing.
Okay, fair enough.
I went with Atlanta versus Kansas City with Atlanta winning it.
Nice.
Bold predictions.
They are
That's
both
nice.
pretty.
Michael Vick, Priest Holmes, Super Bowl. That should be an entertaining one, actually. I'd like that matchup, actually. I think Brandon might have copied my sheet when I was hooking up my mic. Because
That's exactly what I did.
I've got the Indianapolis Colts also. I think they're just due. I think that Tony Dungy finally has built that good defense. And when you got one of the best quarterbacks definitely in the league at this time, if not of all time, Peyton Manning with all those weapons, Edgerrin James is back, who I thought they might lose to free agency. They're going to be really tough to stop. I think they're going to roll through and win the Super Bowl. And I do think that the Vikings will be the surprise team that'll be there. And you can't argue with that being not an exciting Super Bowl as well either. But anyway, so that's our predictions. As far as, and we'll just have to see how the schedule plays out. That's how they play the games. Whatever. I'm sure there are going to be some surprise teams that we would have never thought.
There
and
always
also
is.
some
That's
teams
the
that-
beauty of the NFL.
But all right, so that'll wrap up our division preview and playoff preview. And now we're going to move on to, for all you fantasy buffs, you may have heard something. They have something now that's kind of popular on the internet and through workplaces and stuff like that. It's called
new.
fantasy football. It's if you haven't ever thought of joining a league, you might want to. It's fun, and people enjoy it. But so we'll come back and we'll give you a little preview on some of our rankings. In fact, we're going to start off as we go into the segment, and we'll show you the top 30 quarterback rankings here, and then we'll go through our breakout players and sleepers at the quarterback position here for our fantasy football preview. So join us in just a moment. And star wipe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I got a sweet tooth. Can you get
That's when you're gonna need a root canal.
I love sugar. Oh,
This one for all the nice, clean, decent women.
lay it on me,
Pay
girl.
close attention.
She put that sugar on my tongue. She's gonna give me some. She put it right there on my tongue. She put it right there on my tongue. Like no other.
All right, and those were the top 30 available quarterbacks in your fantasy leagues. And what we're going to do is go around here and pick out who our picks as breakout candidates, people that are possibly already good at their position but are going to take that next step to the next level and become an elite player at their position, most likely in the top 10 after this year. And then as far as sleepers, guys that if you wait in your fantasy drafts to pick at this position, these are guys that you could pick later in most drafts and you can possibly can still be a solid selection to start for your team. So anyway, we'll start off, of course, we went over the quarterbacks. Brandon, start us off with, first of all, your breakouts. Who do you think are going to be your breakout quarterbacks for 2005?
My 3 breakouts are young guys, and they're going to be, the best quarterbacks in the league for years to come. My first one would be Michael Vick. He's not that he hasn't had good seasons before, but I finally think his touchdowns are going to start going up, and he's really going to put that team on his shoulders and carry him. My second one's Byron Leftwich. He's passes the ball a lot, accurate passer, good packer, kind of gunslinger type guy. And my third one's David Carr. He's shown a lot of improvement over the years, but he's just going to keep getting better and better. He's got a phenomenal arm. He's mobile, and now he's got very good weapons to throw to.
All right, those are some good picks. Bob?
I also have 2 of the 3 that Brandon was talking about. I have Byron Leftwich and David Carr. I agree completely with those. Didn't even think of Michael Vick because he's so good already. I didn't think of him as a breakout candidate, but that I took Carson Palmer as my other one. I think he's a young guy. I think he might not be ready to break out just yet, but maybe kind of a sleeper candidate also in this.
Yeah.
Where you might
most
be able
people,
to get him
most
a
people are
little.
picking Carson Palmer to really break out this year. I kind of agree that
think
it
it's
may happen this year, but I
next
think it'll
year.
be next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, I think
too.
he's kind of either or. He could be a sleeper that could break out this year. And
But I
you
think
might
the
get him a
team
little
will start
later.
to improve this year,
Right.
so I think his
Right.
numbers will go up. No doubt about that. So,
Yep.
and my three breakouts are actually the same as Brandon's. Must have looked at my sheet once again, but not Byron Leftwich being one of them. I think the Jaguars are much improved. I think Reggie Williams and Matt Jones, the mathlete that they drafted, really are guys that are going to step up and make them a better team. And as long as Fred Taylor stays healthy, knock on wood, I think that they'll be a surprise team. So Leftwich, I think, will be much improved because of that. His numbers across the board will improve. And the same thing, I believe, David Carr. So that's our consensus, all three. We really think the Texans and David Carr, he's the type of quarterback who's got the skills to lead that team to the playoffs. So his numbers will be much better this year. And I agree, Michael Vick, I think first of all, when he came in the league, people were excited about this guy to be as their fantasy quarterback. He has not had any campaigns with over 20 touchdown passes, which is quite pathetic, actually. But he does run for, between 700 and 900 yards a year with a few touchdowns. So that adds that element to the game. But they're starting to surround him with better weapons and just a better defense. So I think Michael Vick, if he stays healthy the whole year, I think we'll have a pretty decent year, and I think I'll surprise some people. So that's my picks. Let's move on to our sleepers for the quarterbacks. Bob, you want to start off with your sleepers, guys you can get later in the draft?
Sure. I think you can get Jake Plummer a little bit later in the draft, along
Yes,
with
you can.
Aaron Brooks. I think Aaron Brooks has the possibility of being a sleeper. They're going to have to come from behind in quite a few games, so I mean he might get you some junk touchdowns at the end. And then anybody that's got Randy Moss as a wide receiver, I think Kerry Collins, he may not be a sleeper. He may be actually overrated because of the Randy Moss factor. So it's going to be one or the other. Kerry Collins might go early in some drafts because of Randy Moss, and he might fall pretty far just because
Yeah.
he's an idiot.
But I think
But-
he's an intriguing guy going into this year. Most people are like, I think I want him, but I'm not sure. So
Exactly.
you
You might
never
be
know,
able to
but-
wait on him if if someone takes him early, then just go on to
But I
somebody
think they'll
else.
put up solid, but not spectacular numbers. So
Right.
if you can get them later, might as well. Brandon, sleepers?
I agree with Bob on the Kerry Collins thing. I think he is going to fall, and I think he'll just put up a lot of passing numbers because they're going to be behind a lot. And he does have Randy Moss and Jerry Porter, two very solid wide receivers.
Yeah.
Then my other sleeper would be Chad Pennington. For some reason, this guy falls off everyone's map every year. He's not really a quarterback anyone talks about. I think you can pretty much pencil him in as long as he stays healthy for 30 touchdown passes, and he's not going to have a lot of interceptions. He won't have a lot of yards, but he'll be solid. And my third one, the guy was an MVP 2 years ago. I doubt he'd even get drafted in most leagues, but Steve McNair, he's got some good wide receivers to throw to.
Yeah.
And, I just think he's really solid.
He's a good example of a guy that could be a sleeper a year after they get injured. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't trust the fact that
There you go.
that this guy could, is he going to come back healthy? His backup did phenomenally well, Billy Volek last year. So they've got weapons, but they lost Derek Mason. So some of the young receivers might have to step up. But I agree, Steve McNair. He wasn't one of my sleepers, but I agree that's a good pick. All right, my sleepers are. First of all, a guy who's going to lead his team, an upcoming team in the NFC, to the playoffs for the first time in a while. And this guy's got tons of question marks, of course, going in here, but he's also got tons of weapons. And I think he's going to finally put the naysayers to silence the naysayers. And that's, of course, Joey Harrington, the quarterback of the Detroit Lions. I think by them bringing in Jeff Garcia, it's going to be just all that motivation he needs to make sure that he wins that and keeps that quarterback role. So to me, he's a born leader, and we'll see if he can hone his quarterbacking skills. And with those weapons, I don't see how he can fail. So anyway, and then we got Kurt Warner, the Arizona Cardinals. This is a guy who was kind of left for dead on the side of the road, and he's got a lot of weapons. With new J.J. Arrington running back, I think their running game will be improved. And I think that Dennis Green, the head coach, will just let him rip it out with those two great young receivers, Anquan Boldin and Larry Fitzgerald. I think he's going to be a breakout kind of sleeper guy that probably won't get drafted, but he'd probably put up pretty solid numbers. And then the last one, deep sleeper, would be Eli Manning. He was drafted first overall last year. He got a lot of playing time last year. I think that's going to just make him better. And I think he'll be pretty solid this year. He's not going to be a guy that might lead you to your fantasy championship, but if you're in a deep league, he'll be serviceable at quarterback nonetheless. So we'll see how that goes. All right, now we're going to move on to our running backs, which of course is one of the most valuable positions in fantasy football. Here's a listing of our top-rated running backs at the running back position going into the 2005 season, and we'll be back to go over our breakouts and sleepers.
Ooh, yeah. Said anything that you want me to, I'll do it.
Tell me what the word is already. Tell me what the word is already. Tell me what the word is already. Tell me what the word is already.
Don't look no farther, baby, I'm that, yeah. I'm here to cater to you. Anything that you want me to, I'll do it. 'Cause I'll be your lover, I'll be your lover, I'll be your best friend. Tell me what I gotta, tell me what I gotta do, and I'll do
Now
it.
I'm back in the flesh, feeling so blessed. Back in your corner, sugar, sugar, don't stress. Forget about the rest, let's coincide. I'm back in your zone, baby, back in your vibe.
All right, and those were our running back rankings coming into the year here, and we're going to go over some guys that we think will break out and become stars at the running back position this year. Brand, start us off with your breakout picks.
I only have 2 breakout picks because I feel running backs are pretty solid, and there's not going to be all that many surprises. So my 2 picks would be Kevin Jones. The guy's a horse. He's young, he's fast, he's powerful, and he's got, they're going to be concentrating on the pass, so he's not going to have a lot of guys in the box. So I think he's going to run for a lot of yards this year.
Have you ever tried tackling a horse? It's not really
Yeah,
possible.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's why he's going to be so good. And my second one would be Rudy Johnson. He's had solid years, but I think it's going to continue with a better passing game and, improving offensive line. So those are my 2 breakout players.
Bob, what do you think will be breaking out?
I think Steven Jackson's going to break out in St. Louis. He's kind of the same frame as Kevin Jones, Ricky Williams type running back, big guy, just beats people up and starts getting a lot of extra yards at the end of the game because of it. I think in Denver, Tatum Bell could be having a big year this year, especially since Shanahan loves to run. And something you were talking about earlier with Warrick Dunn, I just don't think he's going to be the same, but I think T.J. Duckett's going to take over and just knock some guys around too. He's a big guy that can take some extra yards at the end of the game and get you some bonus touchdowns.
Sure. Okay, those are some good picks. I also have similar picks. I'll start off with my one that was different from the ones you guys already mentioned. That's Deshaun Foster at Carolina. I think he's going to have a great year. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I think he's going to see those dollar signs. They're going to help motivate him to stay healthy for once. And he is a talented young running back still. Still entering his prime, so watch out for that guy. Also, I agree, Kevin Jones and the Detroit Lions will be another surprise team, and it'll be because of the running game and what he brings to the table. I think he's going to work his way up into the upper echelon of fantasy running backs after this season, so got to get him while his value is low this year, or fairly low for that matter. And I also agree with Bob. Tatum Bell, Denver Broncos are, traditional breeding ground for great fantasy running backs. This is another guy I think is a steal of his draft in the second round that Shanahan found. I think he's going to be a pretty explosive young back here in that system. So that's my pick. So let's go right on to our sleepers at running back position. Bob, do you want to start us off? And who do you think what type of running backs can get later in the draft?
I think you can get Kevon Barlow a lot later in the draft this year. He was a huge disappointment last year. He's going to be off the radar of pretty much everybody. I think San Francisco, even with Alex Smith at quarterback, learning the new system, they can't be worse than last year.
Yeah.
I just don't think they can be. I think he's, with them picking up another running back behind him right now, I think he's put a little pressure on him, maybe getting going a little bit. I think Thomas Jones could be kind of a slash kind of like Marshall Faulk did a little bit last year. You can get him later in the draft. He's not going to do a whole lot for you, but he's going to, maybe get you some points during bye weeks and such that you need to put him in there. And I think Brian Westbrook I just don't trust him. Something about him this year, I think Corral Buckhalter, if he stays healthy, could be a huge sleeper in this draft.
Could be.
Somewhere, if you can get him in like one of the last 2 rounds of your draft, pick him up and see what happens.
Yeah. Like, it's always going into the season, it's like you always want to target those number one backs. You never know who's going to get injured and when they're second. But a lot of these backup running backs with talent could become very valuable if they get that starting role. So But there's no way to predict, injury or whatever, so that's why it's tough. But yeah, some of those guys that share carries could be some good sleepers or some talented guys sitting behind a running back. Brandon, who are your sleepers at running back?
My sleeper, my first one just emerged as one of my sleepers because of the recent news that Deuce Staley was injured. The boss is going to get a ton of touchdowns, and I think he'll be a 1,000-yard rusher again. He's
Wheels on the
old, but
bus go round and round,
yeah, exactly.
round and round, round and round.
And my other one, the guy's ridiculously talented. Now he has had trouble with injuries over the years, but people aren't giving him the respect that he deserves, and that's Fred Taylor. When he plays, he's amazing. He's phenomenal. Pencil him in for 1,700 yards rushing, even if he misses 3 games.
I don't know about that.
And my third one has kind of fallen off the map because of some injury problems last year, and of course he was in jail all summer. But he does hold the record for rushing yards in a season, and he's going to get a hell of a lot of carries this year because their passing game is a little bit shaky. Is Jamal Lewis. I think he'll have another year over 2,000 yards, and he's going to have at least 10 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, I still think he'll probably go in the most people
First
are
two
right.
rounds.
First round, but yeah, you're saying he could be a top 5 pick possibly if he really stays true to form. But I don't like jailbait guys, so I actually have his backup as one of my sleepers, and that's Chester Taylor, because I figure there's always that possibility Jamal Lewis might get thrown back into clink or just do something else really stupid, because that's what he's prone to do. And anyway, Chester Taylor is a phenomenally talented running back. Who I thought he reminds me a little bit of Priest Holmes when he used to be a backup with the
Baltimore
with the
Ravens.
Baltimore Ravens. Or actually, if this guy's given a chance, I think he's going to be he could be a phenomenal running back in my opinion, Chester Taylor. But we might never see it unless he gets an opportunity. But if he gets an opportunity during the season, it'll be because of injury or suspension or what have you. So if he does, he would be nice to have. Also, and another guy who I think is in a situation, he had a nice little year last year as a rookie, and I think that he's just going to be an explosive team, and I think he's behind someone who's not only injury prone, but he's got a lot of question marks, as in Michael Bennett. And I'm talking about Waldy Moore of the Minnesota Vikings. I think he's like a great third down back, and just a guy that inserts energy into the offense as soon as he's given the ball, as soon as he's in there on certain situations. So I think he'll get a lot of scant touchdowns, and possibly if he's given a star role, he'll put up some decent numbers.
I don't think he's necessarily second on their depth chart, though.
From what I heard, that he's not even part of the team's plans this year.
Yeah, Ontario Smith and
because
Mo Williams would be ahead of him.
No, you're all wrong. We'll see.
Although I do like him.
But you are all wrong. So Waldy Moore will be a solid pick if indeed he gets the
Well, he
opportunity.
gets some
He may not.
return touchdowns.
But
possibly,
Ontario
I don't
Smith
know.
is suspended. Mo Williams is pretty much cashed in. So that's my opinion. But anyway, speaking of a guy who's not yet cashed in, but most people have wrote him off as such, as former #1 fantasy stud, and that's Marshall Faulk. I mean, yeah, he's backing up Steven Jackson. He's going to get the lion's share of the carries, but hey, we're still talking about Marshall Faulk. It's not what he once was, but if you give him the ball in any situation, he's going to score some touchdowns. So I guarantee he has at least 6 touchdowns and total yards, definitely totaling over 1,000 yards. This is a guy you can get as like your 3rd or 4th running back if you can. He's a good sleeper this year. He's still a Hall of Famer, so we'll go on with that. All right, well, that wraps up our running back picks. And again, running back is a very position that you need to have great players in, so try to target some of those guys possibly we mentioned. Anyway, let's move on to the wide receiver position, a very deep position. We'll go over going into 2005, kind of our consensus rankings at the wide receiver position. All right, we're back. That was the fantasy wide receiver rankings, and again, wide receiver is traditionally a deep position. There are, first of all, your upper echelon stud receivers who are normally the number one receiver on their team, and then you've got a lot of second and third receivers who come up with kind of similar stats, around 1,000 yards, 6 to 9 touchdowns. It's kind of a little bit of a crapshoot, if you will, as far as picking guys that could really step up and be breakouts for their team. So let's start out by going over our breakout receivers, and I'll change up things a little bit since you guys always steal my spotlight. And I'll start off with going my breakout players for the wide receiver position, and I've just got a couple. First of all, Larry Fitzgerald on the Arizona Cardinals. Kurt Warner as a quarterback, I think, will really help this kid out. He was a rookie drafted last year. I think he's one of the best receivers to come out of college in a while, in my opinion. And I think he's going to show it this year. I think he's going to be a phenomenal breakout player. And I also like, with the new offensive coordinator, of course, on the Dolphins, former guy who basically molded and threw a lot of passes over to Randy Moss. And I think this guy is almost equally as talented as Randy Moss. He just doesn't have the quarterback throwing the ball. It's Chris Chambers. Nonetheless, I think he'll break out for well over 1,000 yards and the lion's share of the Dolphin touchdowns this year, which may not be many, but whatever. I like him as a breakout. So those are my two main breakouts at wide receiver. Brandon, who do you have?
I got three. My first one is going to be Andre Johnson. Not that he hasn't had good years in the past. He's going to have a phenomenal this year. I think he's a top 5 wide receiver in the league. He's got speed, he's got size, and he's got a good quarterback throwing to him. My second one is Nate Burleson. I think Culpepper needs someone to throw to. That's someone he's comfortable with. So, his stats should double or triple over what they were last year. And finally, my third, I had to represent a little bit, is going to be Brandon Lloyd. He is going to be their number one wide receiver, maybe one of their only capable wide receivers besides their tight end. So I think, just compared to what he did last year, he's going to have a huge year this year.
Okay.
I have Andre Johnson also as a breakout. I took Michael Clayton at Tampa Bay. He was a rookie last year. He put up some really good numbers, and I think he's going to probably exceed what he did last year even. And I took Jerry Porter to have a breakout year this year.
Yeah.
With a lot of teams going to be double covering Moss, I think Jerry Porter can break out for some.
Yeah, those are some talented guys, and those are the guys that usually do eventually break out, depending on their surroundings, of course. Normally, if they're that talented, they'll finally have the right other pieces in place that they'll finally be able to deliver. So I do like Michael Clayton myself, even though I'm not big on the Tampa Bay passing game for some reason. But anyway, let's go right on to our sleeper wide receivers. I'll go first with that one, too. First of all, my first number one sleeper, and hopefully if any of you guys are still going to draft in a league with me, you're not allowed to pick him. But anyway, and that's Tyrone Calico, the receiver for the Tennessee Titans. I think he's got all the dimensions. Reminds people of a young T.O., really big kid. I think he still needs a little bit of learning to do. And but they did get rid of Derek Mason, so it opens a slot for him on the starting roster. So I just think with McNair's return to health, and Tennessee will have to be passing a lot, I think that he's going to get a lot of their balls thrown his way, especially in the red zone. So look for him to score like 10 touchdowns. So from a guy who can get pretty late, he'd be a pretty good pick. Another guy I like, last year I did, going to last year too, is Kerry Colbert. He's just a guy who puts up good numbers in college. And he's not a number one guy, but he's a guy who kind of like lurks in the shadows and puts up decent numbers. He's a solid receiver, and to me he's an example of why you can kind of wait on receivers, get a guy just like him, put up like about 1,000 yards, 6 or 7 touchdowns, and get the job done. And my last sleeper is from the Rams, who have an awesome passing game there on the greatest show on turf. And that's Kevin Curtis, our number 3 receiver. Isaac Bruce is getting kind of up there in age, Hall of Famer that he probably is. I think Kevin Curtis is going to get a lot of looks this year or whatever. And from that offense, you're going to probably score between 5 and 10 touchdowns as a receiver, even as a third receiver on the team. He's got a lot of talent. So those are my sleepers. Let's see. Brandon, who are your sleepers?
I agree with Craig. I really do like Kevin Curtis, but he didn't make the cut for me. Number 1 is Lavernius Coles. He had a bad year last year. He was drafted high on a lot of guys' boards. Pennington loves him. He loves the Jets. I think he's going to improve his numbers.